Today on Sword Fight GarageBand, we're going to review everything you need to know about good fencing footwork. When you get into your fencing stance, one of the things that you need to grapple with is making sure that you always maintain your own balance and stability, and that your footwork is such that your structure aids you in the strength of your cuts and allows you to resist what your fencing partner might be doing to you. And so to begin with, we'll start with our feet shoulder length apart with a slight bend to both of our knees. We're going to bring our lead foot forward. If we're utilizing a one-handed weapon while we're fencing, a saber, rapier, small sword, typically your right hand and right foot are going to be facing forward towards your opponent. When I do this, I also want to make sure that my lead foot is at roughly a 45-degree angle. I don't want it fully pointed out to the side of my body. I don't want it fully pointed forward in the direction of my lead foot, but about midway in between. I also want to make sure that I've got a slight gap between my heels. This is different from what you'll see in modern fencing, Olympic style fencing, where you might have a straighter angle with your feet, with your heels directly in alignment with one another. The reason for this is in modern fencing, the fencers are fighting on a strip, on a line directly moving forward or backwards. They don't have to worry about horizontal movement from one side to the other. They also don't have to worry about being grappled or pushed or anything that might cause them to go off balance when they're fencing their partner. However, in historical European martial arts, we do engage with grappling, we do engage in fencing in the round, so we need to make sure we have side-to-side stability in addition to that forward and backward motion. By cheating that rear leg out and keeping a space between the heels, I have greater stability from either side. This will allow me smoother movement out to either side, but will also allow me to resist forced movement that someone's trying to put upon me. So from this position, when I want to make an advancing step, my lead foot will step first. If I want to make a retreating step, my rear foot will step first. When you're practicing your footwork, one of the most important things you can do, especially in the beginning, is after each step, check your foot alignment. Make sure you still have the gap, make sure you still have bent knees, make sure that your feet are still shoulder length apart. If you are doing successive steps and ending with your feet in different spots, what that's telling you is you need to go back and slow down your footwork so that after every step, you're winding up in the same spot. When you need to move to the right side, your right foot moves first. When you want to move to the left side, your left foot moves first. This keeps that spacing between your feet, keeps that stability. If I end up moving such that my feet wind up being crossed, this robs me of my base structure and my ability to maintain force within my cuts and balance if someone engages me in the grapple. So, moving to either side or forward or back, the basic rule, the direction you go in is the foot you step with first. Now, this is just simple advancing and retreating footwork, what you would engage in with a single-handed weapon. But for those longsword fencers who are in Vom Tag, where your sword is over your right shoulder, you're simply going to be doing the reverse of those steps, and you can still engage in advancing and retreating footwork from that position. However, when I execute my cuts, typically I'm going to make a passing step with the cut to change the alignment of my body and structure my skeleton such that I'm chaining my body and aligning my skeleton in such a way to provide maximum structure to the cut that I'm delivering. What that will do is not just engage my cut with strength, but will also make it more difficult for my fencing partner to overcome my cut, or if they're throwing a cut into mine and we're coming into the bind, the better my structure is and my posture with my thrown cut, the better I can resist what they're doing against me. Now, we'll talk more about that when we get into the master cuts as used for defense while fencing. But let's talk a little bit about those passing steps. When I'm making simple advancing steps or retreating steps, They're quick, they're smooth, they give me a small amount of change in difference. I'm going to do this when I'm coming up to range. I'm going to do this when I want to cede just a little bit of distance, but I'm making these sorts of steps when I want to make small changes to the distance between myself and my fencing partner. When I want to make more rapid changes, I can increase the speed and provide multiple steps, or engage in the passing step. And the passing step can go in either direction. I can passing step as a retreating step. I can also passing step as an advancing step. Anytime I'm making that passing step, I still want to keep the stability of my feet such that I'm winding up in my same stance with the bent knees, feet shoulder length apart, gap between the heels. And as I'm doing these movements, whether I'm engaging in simple advancing and retreating steps, or I'm engaging in passing steps, one of the most important things is the posture I use when I engage these steps. As you're fencing, you want to resist gross motor movements, where I'm changing the line of my body as I advance or retreat, because the more motion or elevation or change I give to my body, the more I'm going to tire out my muscles, and the more I'm going to telegraph to my fencing partner my intent, my movement, and what it is that I'm doing. So the smoother my steps, the more level the plane of my movement, the less information I'm telegraphing to my fencing partner, the more stable I'm going to be, the less they're able to tell what's happening and adapt to whatever it is my intention is within the fight. So as we're practicing that footwork, practice it with in mind that we're in a hallway, the height of which is right at the head of our stance, and that our head is staying level with the ceiling as we retreat, as we advance, as we engage in passing steps, so that at all times we have a similar posture, we're controlled, and we're balanced. The other key thing to keep in mind is the positioning of our torso over our hips. Most of the time when we're fencing, we want to keep our torso above our hips in a straight line. If I could imagine a pole driven through my skull, through my torso, through my hips, rooted into the ground, I don't want that pole to bend when I'm moving. If I have my torso not in alignment with the rest of my body while I'm moving, this is going to cause excessive weight and drag on that lead leg. Similarly, if I'm leaning back, it causes excessive push on my rear leg, making it harder for me to move that foot to get it out from under me. By keeping myself balanced above my hips, I can more smoothly step whatever direction it is that I'm going in, and it allows me to keep my balance. Even when I'm making a lunge, I typically want my body positioning to remain upright, simply because of the balance and speed that will give me both in my strike and in my recovery. You will see masters talk about times to break this rule. For example, I can go into a deep lunge with a straight posture. This has good alignment. This directs the attack directly from the line of my shoulder, but I can increase range by leaning my body forward in that lunge. The upside to this is I'm striking from further away. Of course, the downside from this is it takes longer for me to engage in my recovery. So all of those times when we look at potentially breaking basic rules of fencing, we're looking at what the trade-off, the cost analysis is within that moment. But typically, I'm going to keep my body positioning such that I'm straight over my hips. Final thing about my posture is I always want to keep my shoulders relaxed. As I'm moving and as I am changing the positions of my sword or engaging into cuts or thrusts, I always want to think about keeping my shoulders loose and relaxed, because loose muscles can move more smoothly. Smooth equates to being fast when we are fencing. And so the smoother I can make a motion, the smoother I can engage in a cut, the harder it is to see what's happening, and the faster that action is going to be performed. If I tighten up my shoulders as I swing, it will restrict the movement of my body. So anytime I'm practicing footwork, I also want to practice it in mind of what my posture is doing, my body position, going through a checklist in my head of making sure my shoulders are relaxed, that my feet maintain that distance of being shoulder length apart, that every time I step, I come back into the same position, so that when it comes to my sparring or my actual fencing, or when I'm practicing my cuts, my footwork is going to ensure that I can deliver them with maximum effectiveness. Thank you for your work today. Enjoy Sword Fight GarageBand. Check out the link to our 1-minute video that briefly reviews all of these mechanics. Happy fencing.